Joining me now are Evan Wolfson, founder of President of Freedom to Marry, and Richard Socarides, President Clinton's former top advisor on gay rights and an LGBT activist and writer for The New Yorker. Thank you, both of you, for joining. I'll start with you, Evan. Pennsylvania is the latest of a string of marriage equality victories at a state level. Is this bottom-up, state-based approach the best way to effect change on this issue, or should activists be pressing for a constitutional amendment?
Well, certainly not for a constitutional amendment, because as now almost 20 judges have said, the Constitution already guarantees equal protection under the law and the freedom to marry, and there is no good reason for denying that. So the strategy has always been to build toward a Supreme Court ruling that will bring the entire country to national resolution. That's the freedom to marry strategy. But history tells us that just hiring a lawyer and just going to court and just being right are not enough. What you need to do is build a critical mass of states and a critical mass of support to create the climate for that victory. And that's what we're doing. And what we're seeing now is that we have reached that critical mass, and America is ready for the freedom to marry, and we're building toward what I hope will be that Supreme Court victory that will bring this joy to everyone across the country.
Richard, do you agree that a state-based approach is appropriate right now?
Well, what we've seen recently is almost a tidal wave of decisions out of the federal courts in various states since the Supreme Court's ruling in the Windsor case, which has proven now to be very important. And we haven't gotten a Supreme Court ruling yet that Evan talks about, but it almost seems like now we may not need one. I mean, I think we probably will need one, but every state since the Supreme Court's ruling in the Windsor case every ruling has gone for in a positive way for gay marriage. So it's really been remarkable and faster than even we thought it would be.
So it seems like, although this was once a very contentious dispute of whether you go top down or bottom up, it seems like now those lines are converging and there's progress regardless. Evan?
Well, there's undeniable progress. We now have not only a 59% nationwide majority in favor of the freedom to marry, but we have majority support in every region of the country, and it continues to grow. But I do want to disagree a bit with my friend Richard. We absolutely do need a Supreme Court ruling, because every day of denial is a painful and real denial for families, and families should not have to fight state by state, couple by couple, year by year, battle by battle for the Supreme Court to bring this victory nationwide. But what we've been doing is laying the groundwork and creating the climate for that victory, and that's what we have to keep doing. We can't just leave it to the courts. We have to engage in the court of public opinion.
Let's talk about one area where it may be necessary to go to a federal solution, this issue of comedy and states recognizing other states' same-sex unions. There's news on this recently. A federal court in Idaho actually just ruled that they're not going to recognize any state same-sex marriages, even out-of-state ones. Do you think that's something that requires federal action?
Well, that violates the same constitutional guarantees that are at issue, which is basically you can't treat gay couples who are married or gay couples differently than you would treat similarly situated non-gay couples. And that's what the jurisprudence has said, that's what the Constitution says, and that's what we're finding. So really what's at the core of all of this is it's time to end the gay exception and to treat gay couples who are making that commitment in life with the same commitment under the law, and that commitment is called marriage, and marriage should be respected no matter what state you're in.
And Richard, let's talk about how the politics of this are changing. Pennsylvania's governor, Tom Corbett, actually doesn't support marriage equality, but he stood by and didn't protest as this change happened in his state. That follows the model set by actually Chris Christie, who did the same thing last year. Do you think that's the new normal for how Republicans approach this issue?
Well, I think it was remarkable that a Republican governor decided not to appeal this decision. And Tom Corbett said that he opposed same-sex marriage, but he wasn't going to appeal the decision because he saw the way this was headed. And I certainly didn't mean to say that we didn't need a Supreme Court decision. I think we do need a Supreme Court decision, and I think exactly the strategy that Evan outlined has been very successful, to work state by state and make progress in each state, but also fight hard for a Supreme Court decision that will finally give us a uniform plan.
And one last question on that difference of approach within the gay rights movement. Evan, we recently interviewed New York Times journalist Jo Becker about her book, which has come under a lot of fire because she positions HRC head Chad Griffin as, sort of in her words, the originator of the gay rights movement. She says, this is how a revolution is born. And in the opinion of many we talked to, like Andrew Sullivan, cuts out a huge swath of people who got there first, maybe. Do you think criticism of that book has been fair?
Well, I think that this is more important than a book or any one person or any one organization. This movement has been working to win the freedom to marry with many organizations, many battles, many states, but with one strategy. And the strategy is the strategy I outlined earlier. It's not a secret strategy. It's on Freedom to Marry's website. It's called the Roadmap to Victory. It's how history tells us we're going to win. And it is how we're going to win if we all keep doing the work.
So you say it's bigger than a book, but what did you think of that book?
I think that I will leave that to people like you who've discussed it on air, people like Richard who've written about it, and we're focused on the work because we're not done. We have a lot of work to do. We are winning, but winning is not yet won. Let's keep doing the work.
I'd say that was a very diplomatic,
answer.
Showing a lot of leadership.
Fast on your feet there. All right, Evan Wolfson and Richard Socarides, appreciate you both joining us.